energy is existential for us.
How long can we weather this kind of uncertainty?
95% of our entire power generation comes from gas. Just think about it.
Is nuclear really the future for us as well?
We have actually set up
Most Singaporeans see the news about the Middle East conflicts as just another headline, until we start feeling the very tangible effect of prices going up. How real are these impacts, and what does this all mean for us long term? Also, what's all this got to do with nuclear power?
Ooh.
Here to provide some clarity to our high energy questions is the Minister of Manpower and the Minister in charge of Energy and Science and Technology in MTI. Please welcome Dr. Tan See Leng.
Hello.
Oh, sorry.
Power.
Why you?
How much more you expect?
Wait, you missed his catchphrase. He was like, power. You all missed it.
Oh, these puns are not making.
I'm so sorry.
You all didn't catch lah. Hey, wake up.
Like 9 a.m. guys.
That's right.
So just a quick disclaimer that we are filming this in the middle of April, and so some of the geopolitical stuff that we talk about may be superseded and
So
the activities
fast
will
moving.
change
Yeah.
rapidly. But the latest development coming out of the Middle East is how both sides have initiated naval blockades recently. How do these blockades and disruptions actually affect us all the way here in Singapore?
Well, if you read the latest, it's blocking the blockade.
Yeah.
Blocking over, okay.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
You got a naval blockade to block the blockade, right? So if you look at it, whichever way it's blocked, it's the same. What happens is that downstream, it's going to be a tight squeeze on all the supplies coming to the rest of the world. And it's actually it's quite interesting to watch how this is unfolding, because the area that we're talking about, this is the Straits of Hormuz, right? It supplies about 25% of the world's oil supply, and about 1/5, about 20% of the gas throughout the world. If you find that even though they say globally, but that 20-25%, the bulk of it comes into Asia. So all of the countries within the Asia Pacific will be impacted.
The number one thing that when we first started reading about all this, right, the thing that really stuck to me is how slow oil tankers move. There are ships still on the water that set sail before the blockade. So the effect of this, right, still hasn't really come through as a shockwave.
Well, a lot of times the forward prices have really started to move, right? So you find that spot cargoes and so on, right? All the prices have all moved up significantly. And if you look at it, crude natural gas that comes from that area itself, and the Middle East crude, and these are things that I learned, along the way. The Middle East crude itself is what you call sour crude. It's the heavy ones, where there's a lot more sulfur. But it is actually quite highly valued, because a lot of downstream products, whether it is the jet fuel, the kerosene, to naphtha, to bitumen, diesel, and all that, all come from the refining of that crude itself. So when you have that kind of chokehold on the supply, you find it downstream, right? As countries starts to scramble to diversify to get from other places itself, right? There would definitely be an impact.
One thing I'm curious about is that I think with the US and even some other countries in Europe taking a more protectionist stance, do you not see kind of that idea of trade then dwindling, or are other countries then taking up the mantle and saying, no, let's actually encourage more trade?
Tariffs,
Yeah.
what you're referring to, obviously is something that we don't look forward to. We have, through multiple crises, never imposed export restrictions, from the time when we were a lot poorer. That's why we've thrived on for so many years. Our economy is now, I think, the trade and all that is 800 billion economy in a year. So if you look at it, crisis to crisis, each time when we emerge out of the crisis, we build an even stronger and even more credible name, reputation for ourselves. You build trust, the integrity, that credibility with your partners. And some of our closest partners are really very close to us. So you have Australia. Australia as a huge continent, I think, gives us that confidence that working closely with them, and we also buy natural gas from them. Likewise, they buy our refined products downstream, right? So it's a very, very good partnership. Our basis is premised on the fact that we will always remain open. We will always adopt a multilateral, rules-based global order. And therefore, as much as that is the expectation on ourselves, we also hope that our partners will do the same. Even though we talk about an energy crisis, actually it's more of a supply chain crisis because there's a chokehold on the Straits of Hormuz, right? The blockade. But we are also at a time where actually there's a huge abundance, in terms of oil and gas because of all the discoveries that has happened. If you look at the US, today, they are net exporter of oil and gas, unlike some years back where they were a net importer because of all the discovery, right? So you think about it today, actually, the resources, the natural resources, there's no shortage. But it is the shifting of that supply chain because of where we are, our location, allows us to be that center to facilitate those kind of trade flows. At the same time, when the crude comes, they can break bulk here, they can store it in the bunkers that we provide for them here. At the same time, we refine it, and then downstream, it gets exported after they have been refined, to countries like Australia, to New Zealand, even to our ASEAN neighbors. So that's how, what they say in Hokkien, ulai uku lah.
Oh, yeah, I can do that. Yeah.
I think if anything at all, the one thing that we've learned is that uncertainty is the norm. Change is a constant, right? And it's not even constant. The change is actually accelerating, right? And what we have done is that over the years, over the decades, we have actually set up a fairly well-diversified portfolio where we actually import from multiple different sources rather than from a few sources itself.
What was the reason back then where we did that?
We sit at a crossroads between the West as well as the East. Because of that, we also took advantage of the situation that we're in, the hub that we are in, that geographical strategic location, to actually do business with all over the world.
Right.
And that diversification, even though from some sources it may be higher cost, it actually provides that resilience, that security, and the sustainability, for us. So for us, it's never about just going for the cheapest. It's actually going for the most reliable, the most resilient, and the most secure sources. And really, at the end of the day, because of where we are and what we have been doing all this while, it is about really making sure that we have multiple, as diversified sources, not just for food, for fuel, your crude oil, your gas, and even diversify our power generation into different sources. Today, we are very highly dependent on natural gas. 95% of our entire electricity, our power generation comes from gas. I'm trying to bring that 95% dependence on natural gas down significantly. So what we have done is, here we're on the equator, right? A lot of sunlight, right? Very hot. So what we do is we try to ramp up domestic solarization, right? All the solar panels and so on. We made a commitment. We said that by 2030, we will achieve 2 gigawatt peak. But we achieved it 5 years ahead of time. Last year in 2025, we hit 2 gigawatt peak already. So now PM has come up to say that, okay, by 2030, guess what? Your KPI moved up another 50%. So instead of 2, you already achieved last year, right? So we're going to hit 3 gigawatt peak.
Reasonable.
The reward for good work is more work.
So I think that by the time you're there, it would probably more or less like, you're gonna see a plateau already.
Yeah.
Because even if you cover whatever area you can cover, you probably will hit maybe 6-7 gigawatt peak. And that would probably be only about 9 to 10% of our overall needs, So from 95%, maybe I drop down to 90%, 89%, right? So I still need another source. So nuclear lah, we're even exploring ammonia, green ammonia.
Oh.
Right? Hydrogen. We are also exploring biomethane, right? The gas that comes out from your feedstock, whatever, to even seeing how when we burn the gas, there's carbon dioxide, right? How we capture it, concentrate it, and pump it back to the ground and store it for the next few million years. So because of that, we have all these multiple. So first, diversification of the source supply of one of the power generation pillar, which is natural gas. Second, diversifying all of the different pillars, to do what we can. We hope for the best, but we are also prepared for the worst.
Yeah.
I think that's the type of mentality that we should not be entering, into all kinds of scenarios. It gives you, a sense that if you are better prepared for come what may type of scenario itself, then at least when the situation comes, things are actually better, because the more ably prepared, the better prepared you are for come what may scenario, right? Then, when it does come, actually things may not be that bad.
So what I'm hearing is that we're preparing for like the worst case scenario so that anything else not so bad.
I mean, we are not pessimists,
Yeah.
right? But we are realists. And at the end of the day, everything that we prepare for also comes at a cost to us. But we cannot rest on our laurels, and we cannot afford to be complacent. We continue to be a work in progress. And each time we learn from each crisis, we learn new things, and therefore we diversify even more.
Okay, I guess we can be quietly proud of like the diversification and the reserve battle plans that we've all drawn up. But how long can we weather this kind of uncertainty?
Now, it depends on which scenario you're looking at. So there is one planning depending on how long these hostilities will last. But another planning, which is probably more obvious to many of your viewers, now we are planning based on geography. So if it's a single geographical choke, how much will we be able to last? If two geographies are choked, how many months can we last? I think those things
So
I can't share with you.
Of course.
How much of it also is trying to balance between, okay, you want to be very realistic with the Singapore public. We need to know, okay, we need to conserve energy, but you also don't want to like raise alarm and panic. How much of it is really balancing those?
I think a lot of it is that because you find that the lights are running, the aircon is running, a lot of it is just habit, trying to tell people to try to conserve energy, because actually for us, for your generation, for our generation, for every generation, for a small, geographically disadvantaged country like Singapore, energy is existential for us. You think about it, the water that you drink, the lights that the mics, the even the transportation that got all of you here this morning, the ticking of the clock, everything runs on energy, right? I mean, in the past we always thought that water, very important, right? It is important, but guess what, guys? The purification of the water, our desalination plants, our new water treatment plants, they all need energy. So energy is existential. Now, the real thing that's going to confront us today is, we talked about all this contingency scenario planning, right? How much can I plan? Because I don't have the space in Singapore. I can dig, I can go down. I was at Jurong Caverns,
Yes.
right? Just on Monday itself, it's very impressive. I mean, our forefathers had the foresight, then PM Lee, now SM, foresight, launched it in 2014, I think. And today, it's serving us very well. Now, we can continue to build those underground. But the fact of the matter is that today, above ground, we are very, very densely populated, and the space itself is really congested, right? So how much more can we store and stockpile? I think that's the question that we need to ask ourselves, right? And in whatever scenario you plan for, there's a limit, there's a constraint to the reserves that we can hold physically, within our onshore, whether it's onshore or within our territorial waters.
How was the Taiwan experience for you?
The cavern.
The Cavern, sorry. Cavern.
Like a
You go to a bar.
Go drink.
No, yeah, it was so cool though. I've always wanted to be there. It was such a cool place.
It's quite warm.
Oh.
I mean, I don't know what I expected. When I saw the picture of them, then it's underground and the walls are like the muddy stuff, right? Then it's like, isn't that supposed to be all oil? Like, where is the oil? But does it look empty?
We were on the observation deck.
Oh.
The one is below us.
But it's really a tank, right? It's not pipes, right?
No,
it's really a tank,
It's
right?
a cavern.
Like it's straight up just a rock
Cavern.
cave.
It's a rock. Yeah.
So
cavern.
really it's poured on the rock lah.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
it's the at the bottom lah, because
Yeah.
you know, so you have all this sedimentary rock and the different type. I'm not a geologist, but you know,
So
but
actually, give you
it's
one
there.
more time. We have to learn about this.
So we store millions of barrels there, you know.
Yeah,
of
it
crude.
doesn't feel like a lot. Like when I saw the size and pictures of it, I'm like, whoa,
Yeah.
so impressive. Then after that, we saw like Singapore consumes 1.5.
1.5 a day, and we
Million
store
barrels
9
a day.
million,
9
there.
million.
Doesn't feel like a
Bro, it's
great
like 1.5
yeah.
weeks.
Yeah, but that's underground, you know. What about those
Silos
tankers,
and,
the tankers that you
Oh.
have? So every time I go to Jurong Island, I tell you, I feel very inspired. It gives you the sense of confidence, you know.
Yeah.
You say, wow, these are our reserves, you know. It's a very strong statement.
I think this is as good a time as any, because
Yeah,
it's
it
got
is.
me thinking about how oil may not, oil is probably not going to be here forever, right? But the next step is nuclear. Yeah, I feel that for the world, and I feel like we've been given these magic rocks that generate so much crazy amount of power. But then for some reason, there's been this like worldwide sort of a dampening of it. But is nuclear really the future for us as well?
Well, I think it's experiencing some renaissance. First, I think it was a lot of it was also driven by many leading nations wanting to push for net zero future, right? Because of commitments, to decarbonize, and the fact that the CO2 is choking up our environments and so on, and global warming, right? So I think it's seeing a renaissance, and indeed the advanced nuclear energy technologies, namely in the form of all these small modular reactors, they are a lot safer than the conventional nuclear type of technology. So the ones that you see, like Fukushima, Chernobyl, these were the old technology.
Right.
And the newer ones today, the physics, the engineering, the safety aspects have all proven to be very, very effective. They have not reached that commercial, sort of deployment yet. And that's what we are studying. We are very, very close in terms of chasing some of these SMR, but we have not made that decision. When I say close, it means that we're really focused on looking to see, how adaptable they are to our environment, to our climate, to our land constraints, right? And what are the safety zones that's required, right? But the important thing today is that they are indeed very promising. As I've shared in Parliament, right, in the budget COS this year, just think about it. We have our cavern, right? I think the cavern can have about 600, I think, Olympic-sized swimming pools, the cavern. Now, one Olympic-sized swimming pool, natural gas, liquefied natural gas, right, is equivalent to just 5 1-inch pallet of uranium.
Oh.
In terms of the power generation capacity. So if you think about it, right, the space itself that's required, because it's so energy dense, right? So for us, if the small modular reactors work and they are very safe to begin with, right, I think it's something that we can consider.
So for reference, 1 gram of uranium generates as much power as 3 tons of coal, which is just a mind-boggling number.
You know what else is mind-boggling
What is
about this? Sorry, can I
mind-boggling?
interrupt this?
Go.
The whole point of this exercise about fuel and power generation, we're just trying to boil water. That humbles me.
And you just
That
steam,
really
right?
humbles what the heck we think we are doing. Sir. We're just trying to boil water so we can turn that thing, so that thing can go and cut the magnetic field that we learned in primary 3. You know? Like this whole thing, okay, on nuclear, what we're trying to do. Any other first thing?
Yeah, the left and the right-hand rule.
After that, Faraday. You know what we're trying to do? We're trying to boil water.
Fleming.
Crazy. For comparison, the Fukushima reactor meltdown, how big is that?
Theirs is when they generate, right, they're generating in the thousands of megawatts. Ours, for these small modular reactors, we're looking at each module, something like 60 to 80 megawatts. You stack about 6 of them together, you get about the equivalent of about 400 megawatts. The type of fuel that they use is actually also very safe. In fact, there's one particular fuel type called triso fuel, where actually the uranium is right at the core. It's like it's quite small. I think it's slightly bigger than your match stick. The
head of the match
the
stick.
head, slightly bigger than that. Then what happens is that you coat 4 layers. So the first layer you have this I think porous carbon, then followed by a pyrolytic layer. Then you put carbide, silicon carbide. Then after that, another layer of carbon.
So by now it's a Mentos lah about
the whole, by the time you do all that, it's like the size of a golf ball,
Oh, okay.
right? And so the nuclear reaction is contained within this 4-layer protection, within the thing. And then you've got, so one modular reactor can have about, I think something like 2,400 or 2,800 of these golf balls. And it gets heated up, right? Then you get water running through, it gets superheated to steam, and then it drives the turbine.
Right.
So it's very, very self-contained. And
so
all
sick,
of this is,
If anything happens to that one golf ball, how is the process to stop the reaction?
it's passive because of the fact that it is self-contained to begin with, because it's cased in cement and lead and all that, right? So if anything happens, it's unlikely for it to spread because it's already so well contained. In the unlikely event that even if it spreads itself, and you're talking about like we have actually done planning, like when would that accident happen, in how many years, that one event. And these are not number of years or decades. It's like in the, I don't have it offhand, so I don't want to
But 2-3 DG kind lah is what you're saying.
It's more than that.
Oh.
It's like in a million years an accident happening. So it's that kind of kind of small magnitude of an accident happening. So it's very, very safe.
So like we can look at the science and it can be very safe on paper, but a lot of it is also public perception. And I think the idea of nuclear was soft launched maybe like 2-3 budgets ago. Like what have you been like observing with feedback on the ground? And are Singaporeans actually optimistic about it, or is there some way to go with correcting this perception?
By and large, the response has been a lot more positive.
Okay.
I've not seen significant pushback. In fact, on some of my social media feeds, the comments that come in is, actually, why are you not doing it sooner? Right? Why are we waiting? Why are you still saying that you haven't made the decision? It's like as if, you cannot make up your mind. Actually, it's not that we are indecisive. It's just that we're waiting for the first one to be commercially deployed.
Right.
So far, not a single one has been commercially deployed. And there are steps. There are steps that we need to take. So there are all these things that we have to take into consideration. That's why we're taking a very measured, very deliberated, and a very calibrated type of step. You could say that, small steps, but each step that we take, we have to be very sure. Because at the end of the day, when we plant, right, it would be for you, your children, your grandchildren, your generation.
What would reliable nuclear power, assuming we go through with it, we establish it, SMRs and all that, how would that change Singapore's position in the world?
First, for us, it's always been independence. At the end of the day, this is physics, right? The first law of thermodynamics is that you cannot create, neither is it. It's just flowing, right? It's how do we make sure that flow continues. So for us, in whatever means that we can, we have to ensure that we have that diversification so that we will always be independent. I think that's the first thing.
Even with nuclear. So even if we successfully implement nuclear technology in Singapore, we will still keep it at a percentage and continue running our...
Of course.
It's energy sovereignty almost. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, all of these sources have their own drawbacks, right? Like, I guess we mentioned solar a lot, but then when we have a lot of cloud cover, then no solar.
Yeah.
Then wind, if it's a hot, dry period, no solar, no wind power.
Yeah. At night there's no solar. So you need your battery storage, your energy storage systems.
What honestly should Singaporeans take away from our conversation today about power?
Energy, is existential for us. We should be open to all forms of energy so long as it's safe, it's reliable, and it is resilient.
That's a truth nuke, if any. Thank you so much for your time, Minister. We really appreciate it. And thank you very much for watching. Like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.
Bye-bye.